Crypto Hotep here with another video slash recording, and this one is going to be a stark difference of my regular investing and trading videos. I think I mentioned before I was probably going to put together maybe a budgeting video because I think budgeting and investing and trading go together. So here is my prelude video to kind of kicking off those budgeting videos. And, before I begin, guys, I'm not a financial advisor, not a financial coach. I just figured out a system that works pretty well with my family. And just we're able to potentially save and invest as well. And it's turned our finances around, and it's also brought things to light with our finances, and it also ties in with investing. And I saw a huge uptick in our investments by doing, a few certain things. So what I would like to do is I just want to start this series. We'll call it Survive and Thrive, the budgeting series. And then every month I'm just going to basically reconcile the budget. So you'll get a kind of a peek into our budget, our family budget, and what we're doing, because I watch budget videos on YouTube just to kind of garner certain knowledge, make sure I'm on top of things with our finances and our budgets. And there's a couple of things that are amiss that I see out there with budgeting. So I hope to fill that void. And as always, guys, this isn't financial advice. But if these videos are helpful, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share my channel. Let me know kind of what you would like to see in the budgeting videos, but I want to keep these very short and sweet. I don't want them to be long, drawn out videos like my trading videos. So I want to kind of get right into it. But the reason this came about, or one of the reasons was, and I don't know if this is a bot, I don't know if this guy or person is a bot here, but I actually recorded my crypto video here, and this comment came aboard my crypto market video, and it said, "You mentioned the family budget video, so how do you balance budgeting with the risks of investing in cryptocurrency?" That's a very good question. And again, I don't know if this was a bot, if this was just AI generated, but it was a very, very good question. And that kind of also triggered me wanting to do these type of kind of reconcile budget videos. I do like seeing people's budgets because I like to benchmark it versus what we're doing, make sure we're on the right path. And, I'm going to give you guys kind of a deep dive into our budget. I'll be blocking out like some income numbers and that type of thing for privacy. But just to jump in here, we're going to call this budgeting process the Survive and Thrive method. So the first thing is, why budgeting comes before investing. So with me, I feel as though budgeting does come before investing because you have to know exactly where your money's going out and what you're bringing in, right? I think, if I can tell a story, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago when we didn't really have a budget, my family and we didn't really have a budget. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants in terms of just learning about crypto and being excited about crypto and wanting to invest in the crypto, but also needing to pay those bills, right? And I think that's what happens with a lot of traders and investors is you get very anxious. You see the big wins, the big gains, and you want to just put more and more and more money in, and it almost turns into gambling, so to speak. And then that's when you can get wrecked, right? And I also want to make these videos even for families as well. So maybe this can be, even if you're not in investing or trading, maybe some of the processes or the steps that we do, they can help your budgeting process as well. So I think, before you invest, budgeting needs to be that foundation. You need to know where your money's going out and what money's coming in. And then you need to properly allocate that money before you think about doing any type of investing. And the reason why is because this is going to take time. So it's going to take time, and it's going to take time, and it's going to be longer to develop. And again, it's about that. It's about the thought process of, if you try to chase money quick, you'll go broke quicker, right? So now if you take time and develop this budget and a certain way of thinking and how you view money, then it's going to take even longer to dismantle it if you stay consistent. And that's a big if. You have to stay consistent with it. And last but not least is surviving and thriving. So not only do you want to survive with budgeting and potentially investing, but you also want to thrive. You want to get past that point as well. And I think we're getting close to thriving. We're not there yet. I don't feel, there's still certain things that kind of nag at us. But I do think, we're turning over. So, it's good. My quick breakdown is we are a family of 5. We have one child grown out of the house. So, technically a family of 4, but I always say family of 5. We do have one income, and then that income is a base salary that I'm paid, and then a variable income like a bonus or commission that's paid once a month. Okay. Now these numbers, I'm not going to show these numbers at all, and I'm not even going to go through the budget today. This was just kind of a prelude of what you will see once a month when we reconcile the budget, and I'll normally do it a couple days into the next month. So for instance, we are in March. I will probably reconcile the budget towards the last day of March or the beginning of April. And then I will record a video just showcasing. That'll be the first budgeting reconcile video. Okay. The system that I have. So here's the big breakdown here. So the system I have is I use Monarch Money. A link, if you don't have a Monarch Money at all, there will be a link in the description for you to sign up. I think you can get 50% off or something like that. This tool does cost. So there's a subscription for this tool just outright. I'm just going to put it outright. You don't need Monarch Money to necessarily use the system that I have. You can keep track of your finances, or you can budget with a Google spreadsheet. However, I like Monarch Money, and you'll see it when we do the budgeting video, because it has a lot of reports. It has reporting. I can quickly access transactions. It ties into all of our accounts, all of them. It's crazy the amount of APIs that this system has, and it's really good. So you can get a full-on dashboard of how your family's wealth or how your expenses are doing. So again, I said, that's the hub and the budget brain trust, because it is. That's kind of where everything lies. And you'll see, how I manage that. Then next is we use buckets with SOFI. So we do use SOFI. We also have a brick and mortar bank as well, just in case we need to do certain things, in person. But with SOFI has a bucketing system, and shout out to, I think it's Lauren Miller, her page. It's one of those budgeting pages that I also watch. And she was one of the first budgeting videos I watched. And she discussed sinking funds and having multiple sinking funds. I think she may have 10 or so. And it made sense to me. So what I did was I replicated that with SOFI, and we use their bucketing, which is basically creating a lot of sinking funds inside of their main savings account, and we designate that for certain items. Case in point. So we have kids, as I did say, and kids normally need certain things, maybe sports sign up, school activities, those type of things. We have a sinking fund that's just labeled as kids random activities, right? And then every so often we will put money towards that bucket of money. We'll put in towards SOFI under that line item. Okay. And then that way that money is already allocated for. So I kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we have to be very consistent and persistent that we don't touch that money unless it's used for the kids. So we do that with a host of other items, and you'll see, such as groceries, Christmas, for instance. What else do we have? Vacation and travel, gas for the car. So those things that we can just allocate the money accordingly to it. And then as we need it for that specific thing, then that's when we'll use that money. The other thing we do and I forgot to mention this, in coordination with this is we use our Chase credit card. So we do have a Chase Sapphire credit card that we use in conjunction with this system. So what happens is we may put a purchase on our Chase credit card, and then with our buckets of funds or money in SOFI, depending on what that transaction was used for on the credit card, then we'll pull that money from SOFI and then send it to pay it off with our Chase or for our Chase credit card. Okay. Then that way with our Chase credit card, we can earn points for travel for the family. Okay. So it's kind of trying to do a double whammy here. So with the other item that I use is a Kindle Scribe. So not saying you need a Kindle Scribe at all. And if I can kind of go back one thing, the Chase credit card, if you're very disciplined, with the Chase credit card, then, or with a credit card in general, then I think you're free to use that. If you don't find yourself very disciplined with credit cards, you can get in very deep and murky waters very quickly. Okay, just YouTube videos about that. But you can get very knee deep down in debt with those credit cards. So I think if you're very persistent with it, maybe use the bucketing system, right? Maybe you use that bucketing system, you pay that credit card or pay that transaction off as it comes in instead of waiting for the month. Maybe that will be a rule that you have to really follow and be disciplined to make this work. But again, this all ties again to that investing piece, because if all your money is tied into, say, credit card debt, you're not going to have any money for investing or to better your family's wealth or anything like that. So it all comes full circle. The next item that we have is the Kindle Scribe. So the Kindle Scribe is one of the best pieces of technology that I've used. And I'm just going to point it out like that. It's just a digital notebook. That's all it is. It's like a Remarkable. But it's a little cheaper than Remarkable. In the Kindle Scribe, you can load your books on there as well. And then you can write notes on it. And there's a pen with an eraser function. It's one of the best pieces of technology, period, that I've used in decades. And I use it every day of the week. So I open this thing up every day of the week. I use it for work. I use it for personal. And the reason I use it for this system is because I have a dad list. And mostly if you're a dad or parent, you know that you have a kind of constant, ongoing list of things that need to get done or paid for or signed up. And that's where I keep all of the family's wants / needs that maybe are outside of the budget. Right, I keep that running list, and then that way I can kind of check it off. And it feels good when you can kind of check it off and use that pen, even though it's not real paper, but you can kind of check it off and move on to the next thing. So I would say if you can budget that, a Kindle Scribe, do that. If not, just use an old school notebook and pen. That's fine too. But keep a list of running items, because if you have a family as well, and say, for instance, you don't have a family, but you have certain things that you want, right? And maybe you just don't have the money for them, or you don't have the budget for it. Just put it on that list. Find out how much it is. Put that on the list as well. And then that way at least you have a visual of that goal that you want to either buy, sign up, or accomplish. Okay. Budgeting percentage. So another YouTube channel that I'll give a shout out to, Marco's Whiteboard Finance, one of the best YouTube channels on the planet. He kind of brought to light this method is looking budgeting in terms of percentages versus dollars, because the dollars bring emotion, the dollar amounts bring emotion, the percentage, it is what it is. So how we typically set it up, and remember, we have variable income. We have a salary and then a variable income, is a 90-10 split with our salary. Now, some, budgeting aficionados, they may have a big gasp at that, because usually that would be 90% needs and wants and then 10% investing. So how we set it up is exactly that. So the salary, as of right now, things can change obviously, but 90% of it for the salary goes to needs and wants, and then 10% goes to salary. Now the variable income that may come in per month, that's when we kick up that savings slash investing notch to make up for that, to make up for the low savings and investings on the salary. So from the variable income, we have two budgeting models that we normally do. We have a 55, a 40, and a 5. So 55% goes to needs and wants. And those are the 55% are needs and wants from that dad list, right? So I'll look on that dad list, see from the bonus what we can allocate accordingly and allocate that too. So 55% goes to those needs and wants. 40% goes to saving and investing. So that could cover a gamut of things. That could be saving, putting money in our emergency fund, which I would suggest that you do, or have, I should say, putting money into our taxable brokerage accounts, right? Roth IRAs, buying some crypto, obviously, those type of things. Okay. And then the 5% is for any debt overpayment. So if we have debt, we will pay the debt off, and then we may have a regular payment that we make on the debt, and then we'll have 5% of the total amount of that variable income that we'll use to make a debt overpayment. That was the key for Marco Whiteboard Finance that he mentioned, and it was a very good system because normally the system is 80-20. That's normally the system. 80% goes to your needs, 20% goes to wants, or however it is. But that's not realistic. We don't live in that world anymore because of inflation. Everything's so high that mostly everybody has debt, and you have to find a way to overpay that debt and apply it to that budgeting principle. And so Marco, he actually applied that where he said, look, everybody has debt of some sort. Let's knock that debt down by putting 5% extra into that debt. So we've been using that this budgeting model for a while, and it's worked fantastically. And then we have either the 50, this is another budgeting model we have, and this all depends on the commission amounts that we have that get paid out every month. Okay. And then the other thing is differentiating between needs, which are fixed costs, and wants, which are variable costs. And this will tie into your budgeting percentage as well. So understanding, going through your bank statements, your credit card statements, and understanding what necessarily is a need. What do I need to live with, and what can I do without versus what's a nice to have. Okay. And then having the rule of investing at least 20%, at least. That's a bottom line threshold that I have, 20% at the least. And the reason for that is because with our system, if we invest 20% at least, that puts us ahead of the pack, and also it sets up the family for generational wealth in the future. Many years down the road. Another thing, the last piece that I'll go over is the wealth pyramid, and this is just how I view assets and cash. So the bottom, which is our foundation, okay, and what I hold true is I think the safety net that we have, or the safety net that I consider, is ETFs and dividends of assets, safety net assets, I should say, or ETFs, dividends, Bitcoin, it needs to be in there. Again, not financial advice. And then 401k, and Roth IRA. So that's where your safety net needs to be. And then you can have your speculative assets. So things like altcoins or single individual stocks, more speculative type of assets are right here. And then last but not least are your cash savings. Your cash savings should honestly be less all of these items. You should have really little to no money in your cash savings comparing these assets. Your assets should dwarf this cash savings in this emergency fund. Okay. And then also your house. So the last thing I'll say is with the house I consider a utility because it provides shelter, right? A lot of other people think differently on that. They think a house as an investment. Me personally, you have to put money into a house. Sometimes those markets are up and down. It takes a long time to sell a house. You have to do renovations. It takes a lot of money versus these speculative assets where you could just buy the asset, hold it, and then sell it for a profit or borrow against it, because there used to be a premise where the house was such a asset because you could borrow against it, and other assets you couldn't do that. Well, fast forward, you could actually borrow against all of these assets now. So that kind of blows that out of the water. So again, if you look at your house as what it is, it's a utility that provides shelter for you, and you try to accumulate more liquid assets, then you'll be set up. I think you'll be set up better for success with generating more wealth for your family. So again, hopefully this video was helpful for you. Again, we're going to call this the Survive and Thrive budgeting series. And again, if you're not interested in investing as of right now, don't worry about that. We're going to be covering basically budgeting principles here. And as always, guys, if this video was helpful, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. And thank you, and happy budgeting.